one of 7 children, our next guest author understands how difficult finding a place in life can be. At an early age, his father left his mother to raise all 7 children. Felix Rodriguez was scarred and hurt, lost after becoming a young father. He eventually decided to fight for a better future. He pursued a higher education and found his voice again. Felix is here to talk candidly about some of his struggles and what led him to write Dad, Me, and Muhammad Ali, a father and son story. Thank you so much for being here today,
Felix.
Felix.
Thank you so much, Desiree. My pleasure.
Great to have you. All right, let's set this up for our viewers. Give us kind of an overview of your book, if you will.
Sure. JoJo's dad is an Aliologist, someone who considers himself a Muhammad Ali expert. When JoJo accidentally damages his dad's favorite Muhammad Ali autograph picture, he knows that he must do whatever he can to make it up to his dad. And so he takes his dad on this wonderful adventure in Harlem, New York, and they meet the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. It's a father and son story, a loving relationship between a father and his son, and I think the readers will get a good story out of it.
Talk a little bit about your life, if you can, because I know that you grew up not having a father. How did not having a father kind of impact your life?
It was extremely difficult. I think for me growing up, being the youngest of the boys, I took it the hardest. You know, 7 brothers and sisters. My mother came from Puerto Rico in '67, barely speaking a word of English. And so it made it very difficult. We were products of the welfare environment, living in the housing projects. And I remember when I had little league games, and if I did something well, like I had a base hit or I struck a player out when I was pitching, I would look into the stands, and my dad was never there. It was tough. And then in my teenage years, I started doing knucklehead things, running around with the wrong crowds. And I realized that, you know, I didn't have a positive male role model in my life. And at the age of 19, when my girlfriend told me she was pregnant, I made a commitment then and there that I didn't want to do what my dad did to me, to my child. And so I made a commitment that I was going to be a better dad than my dad was to me. So that's how my life turned around.
Wow. Talk about the inspiration behind the book. What kind of inspired you to write this particular book?
Well, the inspiration was that the experience that I had with my son. I love my children. I have my daughter who is 10 years old, Jalissa, my son Felix Jose, that we call JoJo. And when we had this wonderful experience meeting Muhammad Ali in Harlem, New York, this was in 2004, it was a moment that we will both cherish forever, and I had to write about that experience. It literally took me 2 days to write the story, but 4 years to complete it.
Wow.
With the proofreading, the editing. And, you know, when I did research on the book, I realized when I, went to various libraries and bookstores that the father and son stories that were out there were like cartoon characters or adult-oriented father and son stories. They weren't related to the human side in the sense of young kids, young readers. And so I wanted to write a book that young kids, specifically inner-city kids, that can relate to. And I wrote it as an easy reader because a lot of kids like these thick Harry Potter books, but they're very intimidating for our inner-city kids and who have a struggle time with reading. So I wrote it as an easy reader. And
it's an easy read, but it has a lot, and I think it carries a really great message.
Thank you.
Was this book kind of cathartic for you? Was it a time for you to kind of find a little bit of therapy and actually giving your feelings a voice?
It absolutely was. You know, they say when you write a story or when you're in the manuscript, it's almost like, you're creating this new baby. And when it was finally completing, it's like letting it out into the world. And so it was my sort of therapy. It was my way of also leaving a legacy for my kids to say, you know what, my dad wrote a book, and inspire them to do something in their lives as they get older. And so it was a form of therapy. In Chapter 10, I talk about how I miss my dad with my son in that story. And so I do get a little personal in it, but I wanted to share with the world that regardless of the struggles that you have, and even if you come from a fatherless home, not to use that as an excuse for failure, because failing is easy. All we have to do is put our hands down and give up. Success is hard because you have to fight for what you believe in, and that's what I wanted to do with this book.
And you've been fighting, setting records in your own family, the first person to earn a college degree.
That's right.
First person in your home to actually be a homeowner.
That's right.
What has that been like to fulfill some of the dreams that maybe you thought weren't possible for you?
It was, growing up in a welfare product environment. I remember when I was little, I used to go, my mom would send me to pick up the cheese, these big, thick brick of cheese, Desiree, that if I hit you with them, it'll knock you out.
Yeah, I know about that with cheese. Trust me, I know.
And,
my mother was a
and I
single
knew
parent.
that there had to be something better in life, and so I always wanted to own my own home. And I knew that when I was in high school that I wanted a higher education because it took me a while. It took me 10 years to go back to school because I realized I surrounded myself by good people, because a lot of times when you educate yourself and when you speak differently and you speak properly, should I say, a lot of times when you're from the inner cities, they say you're not keeping it real. And you know, you're being fake. And that's the misperception that our kids have in the cities, that you know, you can't be successful because you're not being real. And I tried something that's a fallacy, that you can succeed and do different things that maybe your
education is power.
It is absolutely power. And so I'm grateful that I was able to purchase a home and get my degree. I'm back in school now, trying to get my bachelor's in psychology. So I'm really excited, and I hope that it inspires my children and other kids that are from the inner cities as well.
Well put. Let's talk about this book one more time, folks, so we'd rather give you the name. Again, it's called Dad, Me, and Muhammad Ali. Of course, it's a